Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 331. Today is Saturday, August 22nd, 2020, and I'm glad you could join me today. It's a beautiful day. It's, or would it be? Last weekend was very exciting because there were thunderstorms. This weekend, unfortunately, those thunderstorms ended up creating wildfires that are totally surrounding the Bay Area. So that sucks. There's been an awful lot of bad air quality days. What would it be? Lots of like ash on the car, yellow skies, but right now the air seems to be clear and it's warm enough here, at least in this room, that it was okay to open the windows. But yeah, no, it's not ideal right now. But such is life. So I probably desperately need to do a big crafting market reorganization, and I may need to take some before and after photos in order for it to count for the Bay Area Fiber Fair. And what's cool about that is anyone in the United States can participate. So worth checking out. Unfortunately, or whatever. Now the window is closed because my husband is working on a Saturday, as you do. But I guess I did grab a couple more bits and bobs. So today is the last day of Stash Bash 2020, and what would it be? I figured that it would be a good time to do a little finished object retrospective, which is very exciting, in my opinion at least. But what would it be? I also don't have all my crap around me, so I feel like there's going to be a lot of editing in this episode. But whatever. So let's see. I'm thinking about what order I would like to go in. And see, I don't even have everything with me. Alright, I ran out of coffee. I had to make more. Alright, the window's back open. The temperature in the room is dropped 2 degrees. And my husband is no longer going to be angle grinding pieces of steel in the backyard. But I will have some outros for you guys at the end because it took a lot of editing to get to here. Or was it? Like, I guess I wasn't quite prepared to podcast, but now I am. Not too crazy. And it's a very full cup of coffee, so I have to be a little bit careful about it. Alright. Got all my podcasting stuff. Everything that I said I was going to talk about for today. And what would it be? And we'll just be thankful that the fog is beginning to roll in. Call it good. I had like 2 phone calls today, and I don't like talking on the phone. But what would it be? I had to wish my grandpa a happy birthday, and my mom called, so my mom called, I answered. So I guess we will start with finished objects. I think that is the right course of action. And it's a little bit strange having me be in the mirror. I'm not quite sure how I want to arrange the room yet, but we'll figure it out. So I finished the Sizzle Pop during midnight Thursday night with the Black Squirrel Berkeley knitters. And this time all of the normal people showed up, which was pleasant and lovely. We've been going for quite some time. So it is as yet unblocked because I wasn't sure about my ability to block. But if this is my wingspan, I have several feet past. Probably 2/3 of my wingspan. Oh, that's not 2/3, but whatever. It's getting to my clavicle for here. And I don't know if you guys can see now that it's a little bit more unfurled about the purple lines showing up on this bad boy. I think, whatever, the lighting is a little bit nicer this way. So, not too crazy. So it's finally done. I wove in the ends, and then I got the Dear Sweet Lovable one to take some FO pictures for me, which is great. So, he did a pretty decent job. I need to teach him about stepping forward to get most of you into the shop, but whatever, such is life. So this guy is pretty big. So Sizzle Pop, Leslie Ann Robinson, Smutzarella Yarns. The variegated is You Can Never Keep Me Down, and the purple is You Can Never Have Enough Socks. So a Firefly and Harry Potter colorway. And what would it be? Nancy from Spliced Yarns was the one who helped me select the pattern. I've had the pleasure of meeting Leslie Ann Robinson at TFW Fiberfest. I had originally knit this pattern as a gift for my friend Michelle, but unfortunately she died of cancer before I could give it to her. And I knew that that shawl that I was knitting was never for me, so I finally had a chance to knit one for myself, which is very happy. And my mom is the one who has the original one, so not too crazy. I had knit my original in sport weight handspun. This one I knit in lace weight commercial, or whatever, lace weight indie yarn. So, what would it be? So this ended up adding up to, now I'm gonna have to find my post. We'll see how this goes. This might be so I had kept a tab open on my computer that always had that on it, but obviously now that was a little bit silly. So now the Stash tab is open again, so that ended up counting for 1,746.8 meters. It ended up being about 205 grams when it was done, and I have a little bit more than 10 grams remaining of the yarn. So I had 2.5 of the variegated and 8.1 of the purple. So I did have enough for another repeat, but I opted not to do like an all purple repeat or something like that. I just concluded, you know what, close enough, no big deal. I started this project on March 28th. It was the first yarn that I had rescued from the stash that had been packed away in boxes. So I finally was able to locate where it was and immediately wound and cast on in the greater chaos that this room was in at the time. So I don't know if this one's going to be, I don't know, I suppose this one's probably going to, this one's big enough, it's probably a behind the back sort of shawl, or one where I need to, what would it be, style it less, or what would it be, this guy's big enough that it doesn't quite look right as a bandana. So this one I have the point going down my arm, and I think that looks really pleasant and lovely. I haven't, or would be, haven't blocked it yet. It may get even bigger with blocking, and that's fine. That's always an interesting challenge with brioche, hitting that about right, because it's a lot like ribbing, and you don't want to block the bejesus out of ribbing, because that ends up decreasing its squish. But cute. But I would say I'm probably most likely to wear this behind the back, because it does have a really nice long tail, and then tie it. So, not too crazy. So when I tie it, it still covers, or it ends up covering the knot I end up making in the back. But then it keeps my shoulders warm and looks fetching upon me. So, what would it be? Glad that, what would it be? Glad to see the end of this project. The Nursery Level one was teasing me about whether or not I was going to actually do it properly and finish up the yarn. And I made it. So, what would it be? So, I just skeined up the leftovers. They're actually together, and I'll throw them into the stash. Maybe I'll find another tie to contain them, but not too crazy. So, any other things I wanted to talk about with this one? It's going to be interesting blocking it. I haven't finished a big shawl while living here, so I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do blocking wise, because previously my knitting room did not have a guest bed in it, but now I do. So trying to make that work. I'm sure making the bed will be on the list of things I do to tidy up in here. But yay! Hurrah! Woo! So I hope that's my still. So done at long last. Not too shabby. So we shall put that to the side. Is this guy big enough that I could wear it like a Find Your Fade? Maybe. How do I do my Find My Fade? I put it on top of my head. And then I wrap this side, and I wrap that side. See, this one is not as huge as my Find My Fade. And then I put it down like that. So this one, the tails are not long enough pre-blocking for me to wear it like that. But there's definitely like a lot of stuff there. So that is how I tie my Find My Fade, is top of the head, wrap, wrap, slip it down, and then that ends up wearing a little bit differently than when you start wrapping while it is not, because you end up having it, I think, a little bit lower. So the wrap ends up maybe not sitting quite as high on you, though this totally works as well. It doesn't work for the Find Your Fade, because this is a question that Jose ended up asking in the thread. So I did pull out my Find Your Fade after the whichever number interruption I was under. So Find Your Fade, like, if I put it on my shoulders, both ends touch the ground. Both ends are touching the ground right now. So I get it lined up so like the point is on my head, wrap, wrap. And I'm sure that I could walk around like this, but the bushka look is not normally me. So then I just slide slide that hood off and then pull down. I feel like I wasn't quite aligned right on that one, but not too crazy. So significantly longer tails on this bad boy, but you end up seeing all of the colors represented. That side flippy dude. So this is my last color, which is actually what the sweater I dyed last week used to be, with, what would it be, robin's egg blue with a little bit of purple in it. Whatever. Yeah, this tail, he shows up a little bit better. So, not too crazy. But that's how I ended up wearing it. So then everything is all pretty nicely contained. I can tuck any ends in, and this one I think ended up being maybe a little bit more, see, I can't tell which side's which right now, but this one, it looks like my point is actually closer to being over my arm, but it is a lot of knit fabric, but it's not so much that I can't put on a coat, it's not so much that I can't move around and do everything that I like to do, because I'm not, what would it be, super, not, the word I want to use is prissy, but that doesn't necessarily have fantastic connotations, but what would it be? But you do need a really big shawl to need to put on your head. And I'm thinking it's Tara, who's Ariane Rod, who ended up teaching me how to do this at SSK. I think that was 2017. It might have been someone else, but I think it was Tara. But I put it in the try-it-on room, and then we were just having a lot of fun styling it different ways, because when I'd finished this in 2017, like, would I have picked these same colors again? Maybe not. Is it the end of the world? Not really. It's mostly blue, so that makes me fairly happy. Is it a good fade? No. Some parts of it fade nicely, but other parts are like, whatever. So, not too crazy. But hopefully that ends up helping, so you still have full freedom of movement. You're not going to trip on tails, and you get to sort of see all of the cool colors put together. So if I had put together maybe more of a gradient, then maybe that would end up being a little bit more striking, as opposed to this particular Find Your Fade, which is maybe a little bit more potlucky. I'm not sure. But what would it be? It is a shawl that gets wear. It is a shawl, or what would it be? It is a lot of fun. There's just a lot going on. Will I knit it again? Probably not. Will I knit another massive schlanket? Probably. I have yarn for a massive schlanket, so maybe I should do that at some point. But first, what would it be? I think my priority has been hand spun, so as you do. Alright, second finished object is a spinning object. I hadn't quite finished plying this, and now it is covered in my hair. So this is my Nest tulip spin. So these are 6 colors of nestlets that I split somewhat fractally to be combo spun together in a random way, which would hopefully maximize barber pulling. I realized pretty quickly that my goal of having about 100 yards an ounce was not going to be true as I was winding this off. I think I ended up winding it off Monday. I actually had time to wash and dry the skein before the podcast, so that was nice to have all of that time. But let me scroll up to properly quantify. So this turned out to be 1,160 yards of a 3-ply lace weight, 182 grams, and in stash yardage that ended up adding up to 4,283.1 meters, which is pretty bonko. But gorgeous yarn, but I may need to hold it doubled in order to knit the sweater I want to knit, unless it turns out I also make lace weight for the other color, which I still haven't resumed spinning yet. Whatever. Needed some distance. Take a break, at least for a little bit, as you do. So, whatever. Gorgeous yarn, really pretty. What would it be? But whoopsies. I need to spin over the fold for my next project, because it does not serve me to spin this thin all the time, because it makes the projects take a really long time, and I don't need to always make myself lace and fingering weight. Or what would it be? I wanted to make fingering weight, but whatever. This is the danger of spinning for a project. So let me bring this in close so you guys can see. Oh yeah, no, that's gorgeous. So you can see the pinks, the reds, the purples, whites, yellows, and oranges all represented in this shot. And my favorite parts are the parts where white or yellow is in one of the plies. And I think that best simulates what I was going for, which was to create a yarn like Spin Cycle Dyed in the Wool. Because I'm a spinner and I can make my own. I don't want to pay the premium, because I can make my own barber pole yarn, or I can make my own dyed in the wool. Not that, what would it be? They definitely charge for it. I'm not gonna not recommend that you use the yarn. I'm just saying that I have a lot of fiber I can create it on my own. So what I would do differently if I did this again is that I would have one ply that was only white and yellow. And that would ensure that there was bright pops of barber pole everywhere. And then I would have the other colors mixed up between the other two plies, combo spun randomly. And I think that would have created the vision that I was looking for. Because in sections, like, so you can see that there are places where the colors are way more harmonious. And like it just looks like a single shade when you end up getting it all barber pole together. So, like, it's, what would it be? I'm not unhappy with the sections that end up sort of turning into sort of a mixture of those other colors. It just be the case where it surprised me that even though there might be red, purple, and orange in that area, like it looks red. Or it might look like a little bit pink and that sort of thing. So I love the places where that yellow and white are. So even though it's super jarring in the singles, I love it in the plied yarn. And I knew going in that I needed some of that pop, but it was definitely my favorite part. And there's definitely some sections in here where it's all yellow and all white, and that's also like, whoopsies. But that's what I get for whatever. That's sort of by design. Like, there were gonna be places where colors lined up perfectly on top of each other. Though for the colors that ended up being closest in tone to each other, like they end up sort of blending to create one color, or they blend much better than, say, for example, the white and its barber pole goodness. So coffee is really good today. So it's Phil's coffee. It is the Filtered Soul, which has artificial hazelnut flavor in it, but I do actually love artificial. I love a little hazelnut. It makes me happy. So super duper gorgeous. I'm planning on knitting a hinterland with this. That plan hasn't changed. It's entirely possible I might end up going for knitting a bigger size of the tighter gauge in order to hit that, depending on how my blue yarn turns out. Who knows? But the main color is 2 out of 12 ounces done, so it's going to be a little bit longer term project, and that's fine. But huge yardage for Stash Dash. Would it be way more than I was hoping for? But not too crazy. So decent hand. What would it be? Fairly happy with how it turned out. There are a couple of curly cues that dried in, but whatever. Not too crazy. So what would it be? Sort of a gentle half twist, so it's a pretty balanced yarn at the end of the day. We'll just bring it in close for you guys to see, maybe. How close can I bring it into the camera and have it focus? There we go. And the colors are a little bit bluer. There is like a little bit of a blue light on my webcam, so it tells me I'm recording. Alas. So, overall very positive. What would it be? Learn some things about how to create that look. It wasn't enough that I decided that I wanted to sample before I began. And maybe it'll be the case where my next spin will try practicing this skill again, but making thicker yarn. Sorry, I keep looking at my nail because I probably need to file it a little bit so it stops catching on things. But not too crazy. Nest fiber, as usual, gorgeous. Prep's gorgeous. Love the sort of colors she ends up putting together. Her nestlets were 1 ounce, roughly. Lengths of fiber, curated. I had originally gotten this fiber as a prize for participating in Tour de Fleece a few years back. Don't remember how long, but not too crazy. And it will be a hinterland by Jennifer Steinkass. So very excited about that as well. And then I guess the only other thing I wanted to mention was my goal for this spin was to do it for the Fun Onion Challenge, which is this year was instead of being about France, it was about your heritage. So I ended up selecting this one as my heritage spin. So I found a postcard from my family about the tulip farm they had back in the day that had all of these colors in it, and so this is my tulip spin. I'll be knitting pine trees with it, but what would it be? The yarn is my tulip yarn, so that's cool. And those are the FOs for the week. It's gonna be a longer episode, but that's fine. Whatever. So, let's see. Let's talk about the rest of the stuff for Stash Dash, and then I'll talk about works in progress, and then we'll call it an episode. I think that makes the most sense. So, I've shown these 2 finishes from this week. So, yay. Not too crazy. then let me gather all of this hand spun. So I ended up sitting down and calculating everything that I ended up doing. Not too crazy. We'll just take it out of containment. So my stash this year was lots and lots and lots of spinning. So let's see, did I even go to, yeah. What I'm going to do actually is hop over to the thread. So, and I still need to sit down and look at everyone else's projects. I wait until the end to look because it is a lot of fun. But there are a lot of pictures. See, I haven't even looked but I did end up putting up my post. I have declared for the 15K and above. And where am I? Here we go. All right. So, slightly prepared. So, this year there haven't been a whole lot of knitting projects, but there has been a tremendous amount of spinning. So I ended up in total getting 27,379.7 meters in total. And of that 27,000, 23,639.6 meters were spinning. I didn't sit down and calculate the raw yardage, or what would it be? So that is my distance through the orifice, which is just very, very crazy to me. And that ended up being 86.3% of my stash was this crazy pile of hand spun. And I did make one little FO with my hand spun, which was my August 1st. What would it be? So this is my August 1st sheep to sweater competition. So I have my little sample here and my little sweater. So not too crazy. So the nest one ended up counting for about 4,000. This nest spin ended up counting for close to 7,000. And then I had saved a lot of plying, which ended up sort of going into at least some of these. So this is my Spotted Circus alpaca spin, which is so soft. This feels so good. I'm really pleased with this yarn. It's actually very nice and fluffy. This is my Mad Scientist bat that was originally sort of a pinkish gray, and then I turned more of sort of a teal color with my little Dying Adventures. This is a Fun Onion bat from Tour de Fleece last year with sparkle. Can I make sparkle show? Not today. This ended up being about 5 ounces. These are bats that I ended up making at yarn school that I ended up combining to create a marl yarn with. So all sorts of random wool in these guys. This guy ended up being lace weight as well. This is fingering weight marled sock yarn from Three Waters Farm that I ended up spinning all the singles for and then plying for Stash Dash. So this is, what would it be? I think Lakeside Forest colorway, but ended up adding up for really good yardage as well. And then these are samples of fiber that I got at Judith McKendy's classes, as well as some other bits and bobs as well. So quite a lot of spinning was done, and it ended up adding up quite tremendously in terms of projects. So not too crazy. In terms of knitting, let me look this up. So I ended up getting 3,740.1 meters in knitting and repairs. So this counted for 11. This is a marled hat. So it was 3 strands of heavy lace that ended up counting for 558.9 yards. The whatever, this one was 1,700. This guy was a repair. I ended up lengthening the sleeves on this sweater, and so that ended up counting for 1,100 meters for stash dash. And I ended up doing a repair on this pair of socks. So I ended up reknitting part of the cuff to rescue it because there was a massive break in it. So this is how the cuff was before. This is the new cuff that I ended up adding on. And it's pretty subtle. I'm not too worried about it. I would rather wear socks with crazy repairs on them than have them be broken forever, as you do. So in terms of knitting, I suppose it is a decent amount of volume. But yeah, no, this year hasn't been super duper great for knitting wise for me. And I think part of that is that I tend to spin at home, and I've been at home a lot. As you do. But what would it be? And the other thing I think that's probably worth understanding as well is some of those spinning projects took a tremendous amount of time. Especially my Nest BFL silk spin. Like, there was, like, never in my wildest dreams did I think I could have a spinning project that would count for 7,000 meters. So that was like furious spinning over the 4th of July weekend, because I ended up having a decent amount of holiday time. And then basically exclusively spinning through the month of July. So if I had taken all that time that I had spent knitting or spent spinning and turned it into knitting time, maybe there could have been more knitting yardage. But like, it's not too crazy. I need to acknowledge the fact that this particular challenge encourages me to spin. Oh wait, and then my 11 meters of sweater. This is just so stinking cute. It wasn't the most effective use of whatever that crafting time, but it was good camaraderie. So if I gather all of the bits and bobs, like, what would it be? I'm probably going to have to take a photo of everything since I pulled it all out. And because it is the time of quarantine and I've only been to the post office a small number of times, like, I'll have to get a photo of the whole stupid thing. Like a dragon. I think I got it all. I don't think I put any other things in surprising places. I think I got it all, because I've been putting the spinning. I've been trying to keep the spinning together so it'd be easy to gather it all up. But this is my 27,000 meters full of craziness. So that sort of segues nicely into works in progress. Dump all of this on the floor. So cognizant of the fact that Stash Dash convinces me to spin lots and Shelter in Place convinces me to stay home and spin, I have realized that I should knit lots with my hand spun, because it's piling up, lots of hand spun, lots of places, and I should knit with it. I spin it for the joy of spinning and knitting, as you do. So I scavenged, or I finally ended up pulling out the needles in my Mesa sweater wrap. So this is wild and free now. You can see the little armholes hanging out in there. What would it be? So I may end up hopping on an Instagram live today and just chat while I rip this bad boy out. I would like to be able to scavenge, or I would like to be able to scavenge the yarn from this, wash it, reskein it so that I'm ready to knit again. But not too crazy. So a lot of knitting went into this during Stash Bash, but unfortunately none of it counted. Sort of like how this spinning project had, I don't know, a few days of spinning on it before it ended up getting put away for a bit. But what ended up getting some love is this sweater this week. So this is the Mesa sweater wrap, a Romy Hill pattern that I am knitting out of my Ginny the Fleece hand spun, because I need to knit with my hand spun. It is important. So the Dear Sweet Love Wool one and I ended up staying up into the wee hours watching Red Sparrow, and I got to knit on this bad boy. So I had put it down for at least a little bit so that I could focus on the shawl, manage to knit as much shawl as I could possibly knit, and so now I'm back to this project. Will I be able to finish it before mid-October? I don't know. Depends on how distractible I end up being. But, ooh, the colors are turning out pretty nice. Part of this is that the teal is much more friendly, but you can see the garter ridges are a darker color, and that is the teal blue. And then the lace portion and the background is the teal teal. So I'm still knitting with the teal, so it hasn't reached the point where I properly need to rip out the sweater. And because this is very much so feltable wool, what would it be? That's why it's very obediently hanging without needles, because this stuff's pretty, or what would it be? It's sort of, even though I did spin it worsted, it definitely is sticky wool, for sure. So this is back on track, working on it again, as you do. So not too crazy. Hopefully I will be able to get some good progress on this. Hopefully I'll be able to get all of the yarn reclaimed again. I may end up switching needles and popping these on my 2mm needles instead of my 3mm needles instead of the 2.75. So right now I'm knitting this on US 2s, but I'll probably knit this onto my 2.5s and call it good. So US 2.5s. But yeah, no. So really liking how it's turning out so far. It'll be nice to get these on longer needles. All of my really long cables were in either the original version of my Mesa sweater wrap or that shawl. So I'll be able to rejigger from there. Now I pulled my needles, actually I pulled my 4s out of the Mesa sweater wrap. I was using I pulled my US 4s out of the Mesa sweater wrap. I pulled my US 2.5s out of, or I cast off my shawl. So not too crazy. So I'll probably get those onto that shawl, knit it on, call it good. Should I have changed once I got into the pattern? Yes. Am I worried? No. What would it be? It'll be nice. But I did cast on a new project last night. So, what would it be? I decided to begin a Empower People project bandana. Though this might end up being like a fairly large bandana because I'm just gonna use all of this yarn. So this is hand spun. It is hip strings cotton in the Blueberry Crumble, which is this purpley blue color here, and Unicorn tie-dye, which is the pink that you can see on the outside. And this is yarn that I spun 2 years ago because I finished it for Stash Dash. It was also in my Spin the Bin. So it's more purpley in the center, and then I split it up in such a way that I have a third of this as Blueberry Crumble. This third on the outside is the Unicorn tie-dye, and then I have the combo in the middle. So this is going to end up creating a gradient going from purple to pink. And what would it be? There's definitely some entertaining little, you can see the entertaining little curly cues in the yarn. So what would it be? Definitely an interesting challenge to get everything working nicely with the cotton, but it's reasonably nice to knit with. So the Empower People project is to encourage people to vote in 2020. So the purple scarf is the conversation piece to help people or help encourage people to vote. So what would it be? It'll be good, a good little conversation piece there. And this is sort of a mashup of a couple different patterns. So Nancy Marchant ended up releasing a brioche Empower People bandana. Kazapinka has a garter stitch purple bandana. And this is me taking the pattern from the Sizzle Pop and doing a half repeat shift on it. And it ends up creating this diamond shape. But what I'm actually contemplating is actually putting in like a little leaf every so often. So I might have a couple repeats of these diamonds and then throw in like a leaf. I'm not sure what I was expecting when I started, but that's just sort of been what's on my mind lately in terms of brioche projects. So this ends up building really nicely into like half diamonds and full diamonds from there. So it's pretty cool. And then it turns out that the edge is always full diamonds, which is not too crazy. And then eventually this will wrap around my neck like so. And then you end up seaming the end on so that you have just like a neat little bandana shape. I started this on the 4s, but it ended up producing too loose of a fabric. So Ruth, during my Friday night spinning group, convinced me that no, really, you needed to put that on smaller needles. So I'm now knitting these on US 1.5. So that is 2.5 millimeter needles instead of whatever fours are. They're just scattered on the floor right now. Those are my 3mm needles. So 4 or 3s. Oh, I don't even know. My 3s are 3.25. I don't even have 4s out right now. Whatever. I'll make it work. So, whatever. But it was apparently a little bit too loosey-goosey. So I'm using the Sizzle Pop pattern for its chart, but then sort of manipulating a little bit. And also, I'm actually knitting this as one color brioche, because I just have one skein of cotton yarn, so this makes perfect sense to me. What would it be? I would say it's maybe, what would it be? It's definitely the case where this yarn is not sticky. This yarn does not have a lot of elasticity to it, which makes sense because it is cotton, and that is the nature of cotton. But I'm really pleased with the colors. I'm pleased with how it's working up in the brioche. I am pleased with the new gauge that I am getting with this. You can definitely see the texture and the prettiness. And so I think this is going to be like a nice counterpoint in terms of the way the colors are coming together, the way the pattern is coming together, and the way that it will be worn as like a little bandana sort of thing. And we'll see how everything comes together on this project. I was really hoping with the big needles that this would end up being a super fast project, but now I am knitting with minuscule needles, and I don't even know how much yardage I have. I'll have to look up how much I have. So this may not be as instant gratification as I was hoping for, but maybe more instant gratification because it's probably not pace. It's only 4 ounces instead of 18. That would be the sweater. But it'll be a nice little, or whatever. This will end up being the project that gets carried around with me. So, bring it closer so you guys can see. So, you can show maybe a little bit more texture. And it looks pretty nice on the wrong side as well. So, both sides look pretty cool. But you end up getting this diamond shape when you shift the pattern over by half a repeat, which is pretty cool. So I need to figure out the right place to hold this so that you guys can actually see what's going on. And then it'll be worn like so. So the diamonds will actually be sort of more like blocks when it's on. So not too crazy there. Should be a fun project to work on and all of that. I'm knitting this on my Xiaogu mini red lace mini set, so that is also, it's like super thin. I always feel a little bit nervous working with these just because it's or would it be, these are much more thin and delicate, but I am glad that they have an interchangeable set with needles this small. It's just a little nerve-wracking. So, not too crazy there. So, should be fun. It has been enjoyable knitting so far. It accidentally snuck its way into some of my FO pictures for the Sizzle Pop. And I suppose I'll actually have to properly document it as a knitting project. So, what would it be? Because it's been a while since what would it be? I saved a lot of finishes for the beginning of Stash Dash. So, it hasn't been a super productive knitting year. And what would it be? I would say it's only sort of now that it's only sort of now where it's like, okay, maybe I need to slow the spinning roll a bit for a while. And it's quite possible I may come back next week with a giant spinning palooza again. Who knows? But at least for now, I think I'm going to be pretty happy knitting on things. So I may end up pulling out like a different project bag to hold this in because it's not super duper big, and go from there. So I think that's everything that I wanted to cover this week, which isn't too shabby. If you wanted more information about hip strings, I am really happy with all of the stuff that I've gotten from them. So there we go. Had that card handy. All right, the webcam has come back into focus. So there may be a little, there wasn't enough time to spend the little rologs that I had set aside, but I might end up taking care of those just because, what would it be? Get through the sample, let's call it good. And then maybe figure out sort of where my knitting mojo wants to take me next. I ended up washing my favorite hat, which then resulted in me trying to find my backup hat and not being able to find it, so there may be some organization that needs to happen. There's probably a limit to how good would it be, but I think it may be a sign that I need a couple more hand-spun hats in my life, so I might be knitting a lot of hand-spun in the near future. Like, I'm even wearing my hand-spun socks today, so that's fun and exciting as well. As you do. So, I think that's everything for this week. It's going to be a bit longer of an episode, but such is life. Hopefully this second half will be a lot easier to edit. And I'll make sure to put the bloopers in the end. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye. I'm not sure how I feel about being able to see myself in the mirror here, but whatever. I haven't gotten to the point of doing like a good craft room organization.